The excuses are not valid. Whatever it is, I don't care. Check that. There is no excuse for not taking care of your body. There's no excuse for not taking care of your kids. There's no excuse for not delivering the work on time. Winners compare themselves to themselves yesterday. Losers compare themselves to you. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Welcome to Inner Pump, where we help driven individuals get the most out of life and build the inner mastery to drive growth, confidence, discipline, and mental fortitude, where overcoming adversity means doing the things you know you should do. Real topics, real people, real business. I'm your host, Ajee. Let's get it. This is Inner Pump.
Let's get it. JB, we got to hear you. We got to hear you, man. Come on.
Let's get it.
It's way better
There
than
we
you,
go.
man.
Oh,
It's
way better than me. Yeah, it's the Cali.
Well, if y'all didn't know,
Hey, I got my boy Jeff Butler. Real talk, he's a good friend, pretty much a big brother figure for me. The guy I've learned a lot from. We've talked about this a long time. I think JB was, I call him JB. His name's Jeff Butler, but we've
JB's the way.
We've talked about a lot of this stuff. Like he's somebody I bounce a lot of ideas off of. We've got the same core values. You and I talk about that a lot, Ajee, in terms of like putting people in your circle that, challenge you, but also, they're about it.
Yeah. Right.
And
they live it.
They live it every day, and when they don't live it, they want somebody to be like, hey man, you're not living it.
Right.
And I've told JB this privately, but this one's special to me because a lot of what I've decided to do, I don't think I would have done unless I worked with JB so closely for him to say, no, man, listen to that. Don't listen to this. He's kind of like a moral compass for me, right? Of like, I've seen some stuff go left. I've seen some stuff go right. Dude, keep doing that. Don't listen to that. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what we're doing. Because it's, I've been in the game longer. It's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why this one's special to me. So I want to unpack a lot, bro. I'm going to ask you stuff I've never asked you. I'm excited to get into it.
And JB, I just met you, man, but for the small things that we talked about, this is gonna be a fun episode.
I'm pumped. Man. I'm pumped. I'm inner pumped. I was thinking about. Matt was saying that it's been. We've been talking about this for a while. I remember when he first told me that you were doing this, that y'all were doing this, and you were telling me the name of it, and you said it's called Inner Pump, and you started to like explain it. I was like, bro, enough. I get it. Inner Pump? Are you kidding me, bro? Like, you speak to me just by the title, bro. Like, I understand what Inner Pump is all about. So let's get it.
Amen. Well, we like to start off like this. We like to know who you were from childhood, and then we get right into the business tactics of it.
Okay.
So let's start there. Childhood. What was it like?
Yeah, man. So I'm the youngest of four. So I've got 2 older brothers and an older sister, and we grew up in the Bay Area, California, just east of Oakland. Shout out to Pleasant Hill, P Hill.
Oh, so y'all bumping Mac Dre, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. We actually, we used to hang out with some of those guys. I don't know. We'll get to that maybe a little bit, but yeah, man, came up through the Bay Area and went to College Park, played some football, played some baseball, had a couple of gifts in some sports and did pretty well for a time, but I couldn't keep my education in line. I couldn't keep myself right when it came to staying in school and kind of doing things the right way. So I got to a point where I'd graduated. I did graduate high school. Kind of a little bit later than some of my peers, but I did get it done, and kind of got to a point where my sister was going to college up in Chico, California, in Chico State, and my mom was like, "Yo, you got to get out of here. Like you're finding too much trouble. Where I'm from, it's not like trouble is guaranteed to find you, but if you're open to it, it will find you." And we were open to it. I had older brothers, and we were not closed off to doing things that we shouldn't have been doing. And so my mom kind of pushed me out of the house. She takes a lot of credit for this, by the way. Like everything, anytime like I do something good now, my mom's like, "That's all because of me. That's all because of me, because I kicked you out." You know what I mean? You had to get out of here. But went up to Chico. Had really no kind of intention of really going to college. But, you know, I enrolled at Butte College. Shout out to Aaron Rodgers. He used to play a little.
Yeah, that's why I
JUCO
know
with
Butte. That's right.
Aaron Rodgers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good dude up there. Obviously, you know, legend in Chico. His dad was my chiropractor, so he's a legend up there. But anyway, went up there and kind of was slow to get started in school, slow to get things rolling. But a buddy of mine was gonna open up a restaurant, so we had an opportunity to get in early on that. Shout out to Big T, Justin Kinder. We opened up a Kinder's Meats, Deli, and Barbecue in Chico. And that was kind of like the first, you know, I think experience of finding out what it takes to be successful in any kind of work. I mean, it's my first real job. I was like a paper boy and had like other little, you know, rinky-dink jobs, but it was like first real job, and just kind of got an idea of how you can get recognized just for showing up and like kind of doing what you're supposed to do every day. Mm-hmm. And as weird as it sounds, even now saying it, like if I think back on it and really reflect back on it, like I was doing something kind of different from the other, you know, people who worked there just by doing that. But all I was really doing was showing up and like
being consistent,
making good sandwiches and like making customers happy, giving them what they wanted, you know? So,
did you get that from your parents? Like, I'm always wondering, like, it takes somebody to see that. Cause I knew I had to do that or else my life, my mom or my dad would just, they weren't going to have it another way. But was that the situation for you? Cause I'm always wondering, like, people are just either like that or they're not. And I think it becomes like, what is your standard and where did that come from?
Yeah, because you have really good energy.
Yeah, I mean, it from my, you know, from my parents, but from my dad, you know, I mean, my dad, oh man, that might choke me up a little bit, but he worked his ass off our whole life, you know what I mean, and sacrificed, I mean, everything, his body, his, you know, finances in a lot of ways for, you know, mistakes that we had made to kind of keep us in some kind of an opportunity to, you know, succeed. But work ethic, bro, the work ethic that I just witnessed in my dad was not really talked about a lot. You know, it was just, you had to be paying attention, but just only a little bit to see what he was doing every day for us. And it was, just kind of became the way. Like it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't really talked about. I mean, you've met my dad just recently. He's a quiet dude, very blue collar, and was not like, you know, certainly not like woofing stuff like this or like gassing you up, you know, but was very much like, hey, you can always do better. You know, like if you got, you know, I played baseball a lot, and I will even tell my kids this, and like sometimes me and my wife, she's like, you're too hard on these kids. And I'm like, that's just the way my dad was with me. But he'd be like, you know, I'd hit a home run, 2 doubles, and a strikeout in a game. And he'd be like, dude, you kicked ass today. Great game. How dope would it have been if you didn't strike out? You know what I mean?
Sounds like
and
my
it was
dad.
like, but it was never like made me feel like less than or weak or whatever. It was just like, there's always more. There's always more. No matter how you've done, no matter how like successful you think you were in that game, like you weren't perfect, you know? So that's where a lot of that came from. But like in the work ethic, it was just seeing him. Like it was never, you know, it was never like my dad's not around, you know, but like he had to work weekends and during the week and kind of 2 jobs. And it wasn't like he's not around. We just knew that's what had to be done to support his family. You know what I mean? He had 4 kids. I got 4 kids. So it's like,
Yeah, apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
You got to do. Yeah, you know, and then like, you know, like I said, when I went out and was kind of doing the restaurant thing, I had made some mistakes and kind of got myself into some trouble. And, you know, I think through some of his, you know, the lessons that he learned with some of what my brothers were getting into and so forth, he took a little bit of a harder line with me, you know, cut me off from like financial support in a lot of ways. And it just became just the way.
Was that the pivotal moment for you though?
Getting in trouble, getting cut off.
Getting cut off, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like he still helped me out, of course. You know, they obviously still, you know, helped me out in a lot of ways. But I don't even know if it was I don't know, man. You know, I was 19. Like, I don't know if it was pivotal, if I like consciously did something better or changed in any kind of a way. I only can like see that now when I reflect back on it, you know, but it was like, hey, my dad don't buy that shit for me. So if I want it, if I want a cell phone or if I want like a car and car insurance, I got to work and get it myself, you know, like it wasn't like, you know, hey, it's time to, you know, be a big boy, JB. Like, you know, like now's the time. You know, it was never anything like that. I was young and dumb, and you know what I mean. And that was just the way. But I mean, that's where I saw it, and that's where I really like picked up on it. And again, the more kind of the older I get, the more I like reflect back on it and see him, and you know, think about things that he had told me and all of that, and kind of in a lot of ways even like regurgitate them to my kids. Is you know. Where did it all come from? I mean, it all comes from them, man. Like they shape you, dude. And I think you know, as a parent now, I mean, they give you the best parts of themselves, you know what I mean? And every now and then you get some of the bad stuff too. And it's hard. It's hard for them to see, you know, I think in us kids, like the parts of them that they don't maybe love. And in my kids, it's like the same way. Like you gotta find a way to like, you know, nurture the good parts and like push those out there, but also kind of grapple with the parts of, you know, you that you got from your parents, or the parts of me that my kids get from me that I don't necessarily love. And I'm like, I don't know how to really fix that, because I still grapple with it today. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, man, I mean, that's where it came from. I don't know. It's a long way of saying, you know, it all comes from mom and dad.
What was the hardest thing you had to overcome back then?
I was getting in a lot of trouble. You know, I was, so breaking the law. I mean, you know, staying like trying to not go to jail was, I would say, the hardest thing. But you know, I did, and again, you know, a lot of that was really off of his, an insane amount of love and grace from them. You know, to bail me out and to keep giving me chances to just get back, to get right. I mean,
did you feel like you were out of chances at some point?
Yeah, I did. And I mean, there was a conversation we had where I was still in JUCO and just totally, you know, jacking around, not doing anything I should have been doing, failing out. And he was giving me some help financially for grades. And he was like, look, dude, you got one more semester. I'm going to float you one more semester, and that's it. You're done. You come back home, you can pick up a trade, do whatever you want, but you get nothing else from me. And that one kind of lit it up. I actually, of all the courses to have, like, I don't know, turned me on to business, it was an accounting class, you know, like accounting, bro. Not an accountant, never will be. But in that class, I had a pretty cool professor. In that class, like, I was like, yo, dude, with the right amount of work, I can get some grades and I can learn something, you know? And that was really it. I mean, from there, it became more about like financial aid and grants. Like, I tried to lean on them a lot less, you know, financially, but that was the real pivotal moment, I think, for me. And for me, it was late. I was a late, you know, I grew into that stuff late. You talked about becoming a consultant. I did that when I was 27. You guys all started being consultants. You were like 19, 20. You know what I mean? I was 27 when I got into doing what we're doing now. And so it took me a long time. And I was probably 22 before I started taking school seriously. You know what I mean? Everything took me longer. Like, everything took me longer to get to. And I'm grateful for that, though. You know what I mean? Because I think what it taught me is just, you know, this is not a sprint, man. It's a marathon. And if you can endure a little bit more than what you think you can, good things will come your way. You know what I mean? But not for free, and not without finding a significant amount of, I don't know, growth, or, you know, grappling with some demons inside yourself to try to get to a point where you can get better.
So let's take it to the business side now. You want to take it from there, Matt?
Sure.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I think you're being humble with the 10 years in the restaurant business, but I want to get into, before you answer this question, finish off the restaurant space, tell the story of how you got into tech consulting
Yeah.
and technology implementation from working at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And
From working at a barbecue restaurant in Chico, California.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To implementing enterprise technology. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chico's a big kind of a college business, school. And in the early days of Workday, the software that we deploy, they would recruit heavily at Chico State and at another school down that way. It'll come to me in a second. But and they would recruit there because these were like party schools. You know what I mean? They were known to be like party schools, and they would recruit there because there was like this idea that if you could go through Chico State and like party the way that kids party at Chico State, and then also like show up to class and get a degree, then you could be a consultant. Because that's what like consulting is all about. Work hard, play hard kind of mentality, I guess, right? So we were all going to, that was like the kind of the more of the academic emphasis at Chico was business. So one of my employees that I hired at Kinder's, shout out to Clay Gordon, had graduated and gone down back to the Bay and got recruited by this company called Aggressor. And I don't know, I was at a point where I was like, man, the dollar's not really jiving for me in this,
the ceiling just wasn't high enough.
Yeah, I was telling you guys before, I think maybe a better example, you start getting into the College of Business and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a CEO someday. Like, I need to be CEO. And then you start like, dollar signs start flashing. It's like, man, it's gonna be a long road to those dollar signs if I keep repping through franchisees, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So I got a little bit of an itch for a couple more dollars, and like I say, Clay had gone and done that, and called me up and was like, yo, man, we're recruiting. We got a bunch of recs. We're growing. I mean, this is the early days of Workday, early days. This is 2012. And hit me up and was like, hey, take an interview. So took an interview, went down basically back to my hometown and interviewed with Aggressor and, got an offer. And like 30 days later, I was packing up all the crap that I had. And after 10 years of life in Chico, California, as running a restaurant and all of that, was about to go and put on a suit and look at lines of code and like build out enterprise integrations for this kind of emerging technology.
I don't know a polar, like there's not many more polar opposite examples of work than those two things. So aside from having a buddy, I wouldn't call him a mentor, but a buddy at the time do it, how did you have the confidence to just say, was it like, what do I have to lose?
Yeah, because how old were you?
Yeah.
27?
I was 27. I was 26, 27. So, I mean, so I had some, I had some courage, I definitely did. But I think even back then, for me, failure was just not an option. Like I decided I was going to do this. And and actually through the internet, through the interview process, the dude, one of the partners, Vince, I had been interviewed and made an offer as a functional consultant. This makes maybe a little bit more sense to us, but I was a functional consultant, and so I got the offer, I accepted that, and then like the first week of onboarding at Aggressor, the one of the founders who's more like the technical side of the business called me into his office and was like, yo, I want you to be an integration developer. I like you, and I know you can do it. And I remember sitting there and I was like,
I don't even know what you just said.
This is probably one of the one of my like proudest early like big boy moments. I was like, Vince, I don't know anything about what you're describing right now. I've never looked at a line of code before ever. But if you think I can do it, I'll do it. Wow. And I won't let you down.
So someone else's belief in you,
Dude,
that made you believe yourself.
I've told you the story. Literally, I have the exact same story about going into sales.
Yeah.
Where the co-founder of the company called me into his office and said, you've been here a year and a half. I think you'd be... First he goes, have you ever thought about sales? And I said, exact same thing you said to that. I said, no. And he said, well, I think you'd be really good at it. What do you think? And I said the exact same thing you said. Well, if you think I'd be good at it, then sure.
I won't let you down.
Yeah, then I'll do it. And he goes, okay, go to Houston on Monday.
Yeah.
and I went there.
Yeah, no, I think I was in like a studio training the next day, and I'm like, hold up, guys, like to all the other kind of smart dudes who are much smarter than me. I was like, what is studio? You know, well, can I look over your shoulder here a little bit? But in those days, for me, it was just I knew what my strengths were, and I knew that they were not in like a core understanding of what we were doing technically. So I had to work harder than everybody else. You know, it was later nights for me. It was, you know, not being afraid to ask for help. And I got a lot of it, dude. I had a really good like young group of consultants around me. You know, some, you know, my one of my best friends, Brennan, was my desk mate back then, you know, that we met back then, those days at Aggressor. And he just flew out here to surprise me for my birthday last week. So, you know, we've remained really close, but it was just through that. I mean, that was just grit. It was just nothing other than a refusal to fail. Like if I got something that I knew I couldn't do, all I knew I could do to deliver was work hard. It's all I knew I could do. I didn't have the skill. I just had to keep going until it was done.
What was your why back then? Why did you work so hard?
Just a refusal to fail. I mean, I wasn't gonna tell somebody I didn't get it done. That's it.
But were you doing it for you, or were you doing it for someone else? At that time, because your why changes over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably was doing it for me. You know what I mean? Like I you know, I wanted to be somebody. You know, I wanted to be, and I was a little bit older than you know, not
A little chip on your shoulder.
not all of my peers, but yeah, but I mean, I knew that they had a little bit more kind of raw talent in that field than me, but I knew they weren't better than me. You know what I mean? So if there was a why, it's just that kind of that, like, I mean, you know, you guys are athletes, like that competitive nature and you know, just sitting around a cube of like 4 young men, and we're all like developing these things, and these kids all went to like, you know, different schools and you know, are industrial engineering majors, and I'm like this kind of older dude who
making barbecue and partying at Chico,
slanging barbecue for 10 years. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I mean, I had something to prove, and but you know, one thing that I knew, what I had was I had a little bit of kind of a gift with the consulting side of things. You know, customers like me. And that's what I think, if I, you know, as I'm thinking through that, you know, what my why was to cultivate that more. Like I saw it. I knew customers liked me.
Got real-time feedback. That's the cool part about consulting is you could tell, like, wow, they're reacting to, you know, my points more than my points are resonating. Yeah.
And if I worked my ass off to get like the technical stuff done, I knew that I had a little bit of a kind of a leg up on that part of it. So it was just that. I mean, the why was just a refusal to fail, and you know, trying to be better than myself yesterday, but also better than everybody else who was sitting around that pod. Because you know, you growing up young in those ranks, like we all wanted to go and get promoted, dude. We all wanted more money.
It's hyper competitive,
you know what I
man.
Yeah. So
it's
it was a lot of that. Yeah.
Well, I've never asked you this, but we only worked together for 3 years, you know, and so you were in the game for maybe 7 years before that. But one of the cool things about working with JB is just the no excuse mentality. And that's where he and I always got along. Is I'm not saying commit to things that can't get done, but if you say it's going to get done, it's going to get done.
Better get done.
Yeah. And also this concept of there are winners and there are losers. And if we won or if we lost, there's ownership there. Like it is. And that is a unique concept in business, especially large corporations. There's always blame.
Right.
A lot of times you get in these companies where it's outside factors, it's headwinds, it's somebody in that department way over there, it's somebody here, and like
never the person in the mirror.
The last thing they look at is people in this room, man. Everybody that touched this account, or you know, we probably did something wrong, or didn't do something that somebody else may have done.
And JB brought that accountability to the group.
100% radical accountability across the board, and I think that's why he and I had a lot of success together. Is it wasn't just me. The no excuse mentality. I think it probably came from Pops, But where did it click for you in business? Was it starting to see you distance yourself from some of the other consultants because of those behaviors? That's what happened for me. But for you, I've never asked you that.
Yeah,
you just live it now. So
yeah, and it's you know, yeah, I think it started with my dad. You know, I mean, he, you know, again, was a straight shooter and all that. But I think in reality, you know, I mean, I'd give a lot of credit to stuff like this and kind of influencers like y'all and whatnot. Like a lot of what I take a lot of pride in now, and I'm kind of I don't know, crazy about, like obsessed with, you know, personal development and cutting through the bullshit, the excuses that we make to ourselves. You know, like, you know, my hatred of excuses, I mean, comes from guys like Jocko, you know, and like, you know, hey, the excuses are not valid. Like, whatever it is, Amen. I don't care. Like, check that shit. There is no excuse for not taking care of your body. There's no excuse for not taking care of your kids. There's no excuse for not delivering the work on time. You know what I mean? And for me, in work, it was kind of pulling from those early days at Aggressor to say, you know, hey, I've got this deadline for, you know, we worked on some of the big deployments, dude, the early ones, Facebook, Google, big, I don't know if I'm supposed to drop too many client names, but like the big ones.
Yeah.
So if you had a
Facebook doesn't exist anymore. It's Meta.
Meta now.
So.
But so like if you had a big deliverable and it was due the next day in the early days of the product, like you did not F that up. You did not, or I didn't, you know what I mean? Maybe others, peers of mine maybe would, but you know, when I kind of bring that mentality now into my employees and all of that, it comes from experience. Hey, I know that you can operate with no excuses because I did it.
Bingo.
And I did it in a way that was way out of my skill set and way out of my abilities. You know what I mean? It was just, I just didn't make excuses. If I had to stay at the office till 10 o'clock at night and be back at 5 a.m., like, yo, that's what I had to do. There was no other way. It was the only way.
How was that received with the other employees?
I think a lot of people, you know, I think it depends. You know, it depends. I think a lot of people, I think some people buy in and some people just kind of hear it. Yeah. You know, and I do a couple of, like, I try to throw some I do this thing with my direct employees called JB's Thursday Thunder, or like JB's Friday Fire, and I'll like send them an email, some kind of motivational to get them thinking about, and it's almost always just something that resonates with me that I try to share, and it's, you know, it's also kind of my way of getting uncomfortable. You know, I try to get everyone to, you know, get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's real fucking uncomfortable to put like your like journal, which is what, cause a lot of these things are that I put out there. It's basically my journal, and I put it out to the team. But it has a lot of that kind of message baked in. You know what I mean? No excuses. Don't negotiate with weakness. You know, and I'm talking about this weakness, right? The weakness mental. Within yourself. Yeah. Every now and then one lands, and somebody will be like, "Man, this one spoke to me today," and that is not like, that's the best feeling in the world for me.
Well, I guess I never really understood why not everyone would buy into self-development.
Right? I can't tell you how baffled I am by that exact comment. But I will tell you this, like, for me, you know, when I picked up into this kind of, I don't know, mentality or commitment to being better, or at least trying to be better every day than I was yesterday. Amen. It's not for everybody. And it's not something that you can force on people. Like, I feel like that message and this kind of stuff is out there, and it's out there for everybody, but you got to be open to it. Like, you can't, I don't think that people really go and seek out betterment. And if they do, they're probably less likely to actually follow through with it, right? Like, there's a lot of people who go to seminars and they become like seminar junkies. They don't do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, they don't actually change anything. They spend thousands of dollars to go and see Tony Robbins speak, and they don't do any of that. Like, they don't bring any of that into his life. I listened to Andy Frisella on MFCEO like 7 years ago, and he's talking about 100-0 and lighting me up so enraged with like, I don't know, like it's kind of self-loathing in a lot of ways, but like just kind of talk to me in a way that was like, yo, bro, he's talking to you. And you like, and for me, I was ready to receive it. So when I say like, you can't really force it on people, they got to be ready to receive it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And not everybody is. And I think that's something that you've got to just kind of accept. It's hard for me to accept because I got 4 young kids, and, you know, my wife and I are not exactly like as ferociously aligned in like betterment. You know what I mean? She's a very nurturing, loving person, and you know, wants to make sure that these kids know that they're loved. And I'm like, hey, they better know that I love them, but like, I don't need them to know that I love them. What they need from me is to have some kind of toughness baked into them, and to let them know that like this world is not just gonna like be rolled out for you, not by me, not by anybody else. Like you got to find your own way. So it's a balance there, you know, and you know, I mean, that's how she receives it. Employees, I think, you know, you kind of, you key on the message every now and then that speaks to the right person. And some people had closed off to it because for whatever reason, and that doesn't bother me.
Well, let's stay on Andy real quick. You told me off camera that Andy changed your life.
Yep.
How so?
I mean, really, it was before his current, you know, kind of position. But like I said, man, if I found him on MFCEO, this is years ago, man, before people were doing this like so often. You know, this is like 6-7 years ago maybe, and this kind of podcast and I mean, you know, personal development has been out there for a while, but like, you know, via podcast and available to everybody. I heard one of his things, or maybe I even found him on Instagram first, something like that, and I felt like I was listening to myself. You know, like I felt like I was listening to myself. F this, F that. I mean, I've got a terrible mouth. You know, I've probably already got a couple edits on here already, but
sorry, B.
that's what it was for me. Like I was like, yo, this dude is like me, and like, it sounds kind of weird to say, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was alone, like in my own head. You know what I mean? Like there are other people out there
exactly
that like think like me and that are ready to, you know, not literally, but kill and like kick down doors for, you know, to achieve and to get what they you know want. You know, from there, then he developed 75 Hard. I bought into that. I've done 75 Hard now twice. I've done the Live Hard, you know, all the way
program.
through the 3 phases once, and then I did 75 Hard this year again with Matt. We did it together. I'll probably do 75 Hard probably every
Chan
year.
one again.
Every year.
Just reset.
For like the rest of my life.
Amen.
You know? But yeah, man, I mean, just generally it you know, when I say changed my life, I mean, in so many ways, like you get to a point, you know, I was not healthy. You know, I was not, I was way overweight. You know, I was like winning in business, and like all of that was kind of established, and I was, you know, I could get my job done, and I was doing it as good as ever. But I was saying to you before, my outer pump didn't match my inner pump. You know, I was spouting that it didn't match my exterior. You know,
I think that's so important.
So that's what a lot of
that's so
75 Hard, I think, you know, kind of brought out in me, and he'll even say anybody will. I mean, if you try to do 75 Hard to lose weight, you're doing it for the wrong reason. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's a byproduct of the program, is getting in better shape, but it's all about here. So it's like
a mental program,
strengthening, you know, flexing this muscle has gotten me to a point where I realized that these muscles needed a lot more, you know, attention. And
presence is important, especially when you're leading people, especially when you're leading,
no doubt,
a lot of highly successful, highly tenured. When I say successful, like a lot of people in our industry are Ivy League, look great on paper. They are great. They're very talented. So you've got it. He's in a very important role and a very impressive job, and doing it at a high level, commanding a group of people that are very tough to command. Mm-hmm. So the point of me calling attention to this is that's you accepting that I have to be about this.
Yeah.
100% in order for for this group to genuinely, and I think that's any group, by the way. Like as soon as you personally accept a substandard, that's going to become the new standard.
You bet.
100%.
Well, and even, save the employees and how they see you. But like when somebody walks into a room and they're like physically fit or in maybe not even like, chiseled or whatever, but you can tell, you tell something about that person by how they present themselves to the world, right? They can have some discipline, right? They can find their way into a gym,
consistently
3-4 times a week. They can watch what they put in their mouth, every meal or whatever, right? And they've and they pay attention to it, right? I mean, those are valuable characteristics. You walk into a CEO's office and you're damn near 300 pounds like I was, like, I don't know. It you don't present the same way, so that was a big part of it for me. I mean, that's like I say, like I had the thought on my way over here, my outer pump didn't match my inner pump, but it was bigger than that for me. Like I didn't like the way I was presenting myself to the world. It didn't match who I felt like I was inside. And I was no longer willing to accept that.
What was the biggest thing you learned going through 75 Hard the first time?
I think the biggest thing for me is just, it's kind of weird probably. Like the biggest things that I learn is that I've got to be mindful of the people around me and not be so forceful in trying to mold them into what I feel like I've become. Like when I, for me, the mental toughness, aspects of that program are a little bit different, and they've kind of evolved because I've gone through it a couple of times. But, I learned a lot about myself and what I'm capable of. But what I think is probably the biggest learning for me, after now the full year and the second time through, is having to tamper, like trying to force that shit onto my kids or onto like other people who are not open to it. You know what I mean? It's not a knock on them. I mean, it's me having to check my ego to say, hey, you can't force this on everybody. This, you know what I mean? Like they're not ready for that, dude. These kids are not ready to like live a no excuses lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like they're not ready for that. They're kids, man. Let them be kids, So I think the biggest
Turn that
thing,
off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing for me is
Ajee, you're gonna struggle with that.
Oh, you already know. I have a 1-year-old, and it's going to be
But
okay.
he's got, tell everybody the age of your 4 kids. I mean, it's across the damn spectrum.
Yeah, so my oldest is 14, and then I've got 3 girls and a boy. My 3 daughters are 14. Scarlett's about to be 7 and 5, and then my son is 2.
Is the youngest?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're trying to make your girls do 75 hard?
No, not do 75 hard.
It's like turn that off.
Yeah, but like, and like I will go in. Actually, my I guess one of my middle daughters, she's 7. She's like a little bit maybe the more like receptive to the message. I talk about the easy road and the hard road. You know what I mean? And I go, we'll be like, we got some land and we'll be talking about like cutting wood. And she'll be like, well, couldn't we just do it this way? And I'm like, well, yeah, baby, we could do it that way, but that would be easy. If we do it the right way, it'd be a little bit harder, but that's the right way. So we take the hard road in this house, right? So now she will like pick up on that and be like, yeah, I saw this thing or whatever. And she goes, but I knew that was easy. So I did it the other way and it was better. And, she'll take the hard road. So stuff like that. But like, it's the no excuses stuff that I do, and my wife's really good about that too. I mean, the kids, young people these days, the reliance on excuses and like, the
hit on it. Come on.
The entitlement that comes with like, why your stuff didn't get done or why you are where you are. It's always the government's fault or this person's fault. No, bro.
Now we're talking my language.
It's your fault, dude. It's all your fault.
Come on.
And that like,
It's a you problem.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, the ownership, the lack of accountability. That's where, I hit them hard, and it's not something I apologize for or like will back down on. They're just not ready for it yet. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Lacey, your wife. I mean, 4 kids. Mm-hmm. She's a tough woman, and I know that because I've met her. But What would you say to her in terms of how critical she is in your world?
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's thank you. I don't know. I mean, she's much stronger than me in I think every way, just by living with me. And we're certainly not perfect. You know what I mean? It's a lot to work on, and a lot of what, I've kind of just recently been putting a lot of attention on is that, I mean, as I look at, our marriage, and we have a strong one, and it's, I'm extremely blessed. I mean, I've told you, I mean, you've got young kids, I've been extremely blessed. My wife, she's I call her the CEO of the house, right? She's the CEO, I'm the CF no. But she runs the house, you know what I mean? And she's provided me with the opportunity to kind of enjoy the better parts of the day when she takes all the lumps throughout every single day. Like for me, I'll take a break from like people at work that are frustrating me, and I get to go and like smile at my kids. And for her, it's like, they've been kicking my ass all day, you know what I mean? So like, it's a different mentality, but she's, we work hard together. I think on us as a couple and on us as individuals, but I just am the patience that she has with me. And like, she's kind of come a long way. 'Cause like I said, this is not for everybody. I went through a lot of this stuff, kind of without her approval, getting, going through 75 hard and doing that. And she's been mad supportive, and it's not an easy program to support. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not easy to.
Well, it impacts her every day too.
Every day. And so she's been real good. And it's not always been easy, but she supports all of that. And like, we bump heads on it sometimes. Sometimes I take it too far, and, I got to try to pull it back a little bit. She does a good job at, reeling me in sometimes, but sometimes we go at it, and it's like, no, I'm not letting go on that. No, this is not acceptable, And it's usually with stuff around me. Like she'll tell me to take a break from the gym or something, and I'm like, I can't. It's like that discipline that.
It's everything else. It's foundational to everything else.
Yeah. Well, it's always there for you.
Are you a morning gym guy?
I do a little bit of cardio. Like I do like a little 3 mile kind of like walk in the morning, and then I hit the gym in the afternoon.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs that started their own companies that have come on, but I always like to mix in, there's a lot of listeners that are in corporate that have to go through different levels and the different political scavenger hunt that possesses. What advice, having worked pretty much the top of the corporate level in 10, 12, 13 years, what advice do you have for folks that are analyst level 2-3 years into a large corporate job in terms of playing the long game, growth, stuff's not fair? I mean, we have not gotten into that a lot on this podcast, but we probably have just as many listeners that are in that role.
Probably more.
Probably more, because it's more common, and I've lived it. And it's also, you can live a great life. I mean, you have an amazing job, but you worked extremely hard for it. So talk a little bit about that growth and longevity.
Yeah. It's not fair, and it never will be. And fuck fair. Like, if you want fairness, go do something else. That there is no such thing as fair, How to kind of make your way. I mean, the best advice that I give, even people who report to me now is, be yourself. Find your strengths. Lean on them. Showcase those. You got a weakness in some area, minimize it. Showcase your strength, work your ass off, deliver. Don't make excuses. I mean, everything we've talked about, but it's actually a pretty simple formula for me, show up. Showing up is 90% of the deal, Make yourself uncomfortable whenever you can. Growth is on the other side of discomfort. You know what I mean? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Be patient, listen, learn, find mentors, find people who will, who are willing to share something with you, be receptive to it, and then act on it, right? Don't stop there. right? Don't just be the guy who soaks up the stuff and, whatever. And then I think, seize any opportunity, or at least attempt to go after any opportunity you can to excel, to grow, right? I mean, reach up for that role that you don't think you're ready for.
Start doing it before it's there.
Yeah, but even if that is not really available to you, you know what I mean? Like when I was at another company and we were all just kind of consultants, and our manager was going to go somewhere else, and I was like 2 levels below manager, and I got together with a couple of the people on the team, and I was like, "Yo, are you guys going to interview for this role?" And they're like, "Nah." I was like, "Dude, I'm going to interview for it. Why not?" You know what I mean? Like promotion levels, I was like 2 or 3 below that, and I was like, "I'm going to fucking interview for it. Why not?" I got the role. I got it. You know what I mean? I went in there and like a tough interview, and I was not ready for it, but I reached up for it. And I grew into it quick, So that I think is kind of become it before you get there. But if you don't really have the opportunity, I mean, I was maybe I had some mentorship and some of that going, but didn't really know it. But I knew I had never had direct reports.
I bet if you ask a lot of those people some of the bigger regrets, it would have been not going after those things.
100%,
right?
100%.
So you've got it, and it's
Matt.
not like you raised your hand and threw it in the rank and said, I've been a manager before, and lied out of your what.
Yeah.
And, said it was an internal job. It wasn't even external.
Yeah.
You just said, well, I hope my work that I've done thus far, well, actually hitting on it, right? What gave you the confidence to do that, right? It's probably that you've been busting your butt forever since the day you started there. So when that opportunity came up, you knew that.
I'm ready.
What were they going to say? All that they could say is, JB's done everything we've asked him to do and more in the role that we've given him.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the worst thing they could say is no.
You're right.
But at least you. It's like a Wayne Gretzky, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Facts.
You know what I mean? I would tell you what my real motivation, as I think back on it now, was like it was me and my buddy Brennan, and there was like a couple of other dudes kind of on our team, and I was like, yo, dude, I don't want either one of those guys to be our manager. So I was like,
why not me?
I'm going to take a shot at it, dude, because I'd rather it be me than them. Mm-hmm. That was my real like motivation. I knew what I didn't want, and I knew that I could do something better than what the alternatives may have been. And I took that shot. So,
do you happen to see a lot of athletes become killers in your line of work? Former athletes, I should say.
Yeah, I think so. But also no. Like I don't know. I think everybody is. I don't know. I don't know if I would. If I didn't really have as much exposure to like athletes in my work now until I got to kind of when Matt and I started working together, right? Other firms I'd worked at were not like that. It was really smart people, like, a little bit more on the kind of less athletic, I say affectionately kind of dorky side of the game, you know what I mean? Like engineers and stuff like that. And hey, they can be killers too, man. I mean, super talented, very smart people in their own right. But I think when it comes to, the merging of drive, intelligence, and that kind of killer mentality, I do think I do find that it usually is a little bit more present in somebody who's had some athletic,
some competitive upbringing.
Yeah. So you went from technical to selling, and now, just so everybody listening, JB's in a kind of a hybrid technical sales role, but more really want to take the hybrid, like what pie is it, technical versus sales? It's like 80% sales, 20% technical. Right. It's much more client focused strategy. What do you think makes a good sales team? In
a word, ownership. I mean, extreme ownership, right? We are in full control. Well, maybe not full control, right? Sometimes there are other factors that can truly sway a deal, and it could genuinely be out of your control. But taking ownership and controlling everything that you have the ability to control, and ignoring all of the uncontrollables outright, I think is the biggest key to success. But just that ownership, you know what I mean? I mean, you got 50 deals. If you can't own and work your ass off to win all 50 deals, then don't pursue 50, right? Pursue 20 and put everything that you have into the 20 that you can win, right? And I mean, the biggest thing for me is just generally winning a deal, how to sell, accountability, ownership. I mean, the you know, you and I think is the best experience I ever had with that. And I don't know. I think maybe we could count on one hand our losses, but outside of that, you know, it's not something that
Maybe one finger.
Yeah, I mean that.
That's it. Let me correct you on that.
I don't want it to go up to 5. I don't think it's not even close to 5.
I don't think so either. And
So yeah, I don't want that on record.
yeah, no, I don't think so either. And I you know, I mean, again, I try not to. I don't know. I'm not trying to like, you know, throw shade on anybody else who's out there, but that's the reality. All that was two like-minded individuals coming together and in a short amount of time being unspoken, and then we kind of vocalized it, and it was like, well, then let's just never lose. You know what I mean? We barely even had to say those actual words, but it was just
Well, we did, dude. That's
matched.
the thing. Winners focus on the goal.
right,
Losers focus on winners.
right. That's right. That's right.
That's it.
Said another way, like winners are just all they care about is winning, and losers will just talk about the competition and all that other stuff. And it's like, no, I'm not winner. This is another way to put it. Winners focus on the customer. Competition focuses on winners.
Right.
Or losers
On what they're
focus on
doing. Yes.
On
losers focus on the competition. So winners focus on the customers. Losers focus on
Right.
yeah.
What you're doing.
Yeah.
Yes. On the competition.
Winners compare themselves to, you know, Jordan Peterson's, like one of his 12 rules for life is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who somebody else is today, right? Winners compare themselves to themselves yesterday, right? Compare how we do on this pursuit to how we did on that pursuit, only comparing what we do to what we have done, right? Losers compare themselves to you, right? Comparison is the thief of joy, right? If you are comparing yourself to anybody other than yourself, you're taking away your ability to celebrate your successes, and you're taking your ability to be critical of where you need to grow, right? Because you're always looking at somebody else, looking at the person next to you, and you're never going to find betterment in yourself if you're looking at somebody else.
Man. Well, this has been a great freaking episode. Real quick, before we end off, I wanted to ask you 2 questions. One, do you have anything to leave off with our audience? Any last words?
There's a kind of a quote that I live by, and it's I think some other people have said it, but it's success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I was thinking about giving a little bit of a thank you speech at my birthday party the other day, and I probably didn't have the courage at that time, so I'll kind of dig for it now. And that quote is something that has been kind of a driver for me ever since I heard it, and it really messes with my head because, like, what is the difference between success and fulfillment? Mm-hmm. And success to me is something that I think you kind of can achieve through business and so forth. So I'll let others determine where my level of success is, but right now I'm really more focused on fulfillment and seeking out how to feel fulfilled in my life, not in my work, and I get a lot more of that from my family. So when I was thinking about what I might say at this dinner, it was something like that, like whether or not I'm successful, I'll let other people judge that. But in that moment, looking in a room of 20 of the people that are closest to me in some, I've known for my whole life. My parents were there, and others I've known for, 4 or 5 years in it. And it was probably the most tangible moment of fulfillment that I've had that I could point to in my life. So, to anyone out there, to my kids, to anybody, chase success, absolutely, work towards it, but don't use that as some kind of a measure for who you are, right? If you can live a fulfilled life and you're not, a financial, success, then you're winning. And you're a bigger winner than some of the most financially wealthy people in the world that are freaking miserable human beings because they're not living a fulfilled life. So find that balance if you can, and work towards both paths, not just one.
I love that. That's some good stuff. Number 2 question. This is Inner Pump. We all have our inner thieves. What is your inner thief at the moment? And how are you going to conquer your inner thief?
So, what's stealing from me?
Exactly. What's stealing from the person who you're supposed to be?
Weakness. And I mean, just the fat kid who wants me to grab a late night, simple carb or skip or this or that workout. I mean, that's it, man. Weakness, right? I really, really try hard to every day to not negotiate with weakness. You know what I mean? I mean, every day I didn't want to come here. I was nervous, super nervous. You know what I mean? I was like, oh man, I could probably pull out, and I try to just, shut that down. Don't negotiate, right? It's not open for discussion. The biggest thing for me is just that, it's the guy inside of me who's still nervous or who's, nervous about how he's going to sound on the microphone or, still feels like, there's comfort in that donut or that bowl of ice cream or whatever, right? It's just that weakness is always there. It's always present. And if you negotiate and if you give in, then they've stolen from you that day. They've stolen a win. Anytime I negotiate with weakness or give into it, I've lost, even if it's something small. So,
man, we're happy you came on.
Yeah,
because
likewise.
JB's a guy that you've heard the quote, work hard in silence, let success make the noise. That's this guy, right? So he doesn't like do it. He never done this in his life. He doesn't want to. This is totally out of his comfort zone. But the reason it's important, dude, is you're the example that people need to see and hear.
I appreciate that.
Seriously. No, that's why it's important. That's why I was bothering you to get your ass on here. Because it's important, man. You're an example. You're a huge reason why you're the generation that needs to set the tone.
Yeah.
Because if we, and I'm taking some ownership in that too, if we don't, it's not going to work out for everybody.
Right.
And it's too easy to have other people that aren't actually about it do the talking.
Right.
Come on.
And guess what? The people that are about it are off working,
Right.
not talking.
Right.
And so a lot of times we're not hearing from those people, or we're hearing from them after they've already been successful.
Years down the line.
And that's another thing that I hate, right? We're always talking to these people that sold their company and we're talking to them after they sold it. I want to talk to somebody that's living it now, going through the shit now.
Yeah,
working
JB, man,
daily.
We appreciate you, man. I'm glad the inner thief didn't steer you away from this podcast.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
We got blessed today, man.
I appreciate
All right,
it.
yo, wait, JB, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, I guess, at @therealjb44. But
Amen.
that's it, man.
Well, y'all give this man a follow. We out, baby. Interrupt. Peace.
I never mess up the commas. You know I put that on my mom. Well, that's all we got for this episode of Inner Pump. One thing that would really help both of us and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Also, make sure to check us out at innerpump.com on social media. And if you enjoyed this episode and received anything of value, please share this podcast with anyone you think might enjoy it. Until next time, we out, baby. Inner Pump. Peace.